महन्नस्य ॐ ज्ञानतिर्महन्नस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कंठ राधा कंठ नमोस्तुते। जेतं सुरतो पंगोर्मामा मंदिर्मतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदम्बोजो राधा मादन मोहनो दिव्याद्वृन्दरण्यकल्पद्रुमतः श्रीमद्रत्नकार सिंहासनस्थो श्रीमद् राधा शीला गोविंद देवो पृष्ठादिभिः सेव्यमनुस्मरामि। श्रीमान् रसारसारम्भे वंशीवतः स्थितः कर्षन् वेणुस्वनेर्गोपी गोपीनाथ श्रियेस्तु नः। तप्तकाञ्चन गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नाष्टाप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवती सेवया भगवते उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So today is Thursday, the 19th of June, 2025. It is Gaurabda 539, so 539 years after the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are reading, as Mataji rightly indicated, from the third canto entitled The Status Quo, chapter 4, Vidura approaches Maitreya, and we are reading from the 24th verse. So, Satam Mahabhagavatam Prajanatam Kaurava Shabha Vishrambhad Abhyadhatedham Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe. Satam Mahabhagavatam Prajanatam Kauroshabha Vishrambhad Abhyadhatedam Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe. Satam Mahabhagavatam Brajanatam Karoshabha Vishrambhad Abhyadhatedam Mukyam Krishna Parigrahe. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charanarvindam Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. While Uddhav, the chief and most confidential amongst the devotees of the Lord, was going away, Vidhur, in affection and confidence, questioned him. I'll read that again. While Uddhav, the chief and most confidential amongst the devotees of the Lord, was going away, Vidur, in affection and confidence, questioned him. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. So just before I read the purport, am I very backlit? Are people able to see me? Hitesh Prabhu, does it appear very dark? In the sense that you can't see?
No,
Prabhuji, you're okay.
we can see you. It's okay.
Clear, but there's not too much light. Sorry, I'm sitting in another room because everything in the UK is insulated for very cold weather. So if even one ray of sun shines on your building, it becomes stifling hot. So I'm sitting in a bedroom today, and the lighting is different. So would you like me to close the curtain, or is it visible from your side, Hitesh Prabhu? It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
Perfect. So, purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidur was much older than Uddhav. By family relationship, Uddhav was a contemporary of Krishna's, while Vidur was as elderly as Krishna's father, Vasudeva. But although junior by age, Uddhav was much advanced in the devotional service of the Lord. And therefore he is described herein as the chief amongst the devotees of the Lord. Vidur was confident about this, and thus he addressed Uddhav in that higher category. That is the way of courteous dealings between two devotees. So courteous dealings, the Sanskrit for courteous dealings is sadachar. Sadachar, sad-achar, achar. The word achar means conduct. Hence we get the term acharya. So sad-achar literally means truthful conduct. The conduct which is good in all circumstances. Courtesy or etiquette is known as sadachar. And the acharya of sadachar is Srila Sanatana Goswami. Most notably in Sanatana Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilas. Now, Sanatana Goswami, we'll give an introduction. So it's interesting that I hope all the devotees here had some wonderful sessions in the intervening period. In the 3 weeks that I've been away, we've only moved forward 6 verses. So I'm sure you've been having the association of many wonderful devotees and engaging in many wonderful programs and classes. But at least it's nice that we're still in the same chapter. So there's some continuity, certainly for me. So we've only moved 6 verses. And again, to recap, Vidur has left Hastinapur. Vidur, despite his best counsel to Dhritarashtra, was treated very, very maliciously by his nephew. And it's an interesting comparison, actually. You see, Duryodhana is his nephew, and in one sense, Uddhav is also his nephew. Right? Krishna is the cousin of Arjuna, and Krishna's close companion is Uddhav. And in some descriptions, it said that Uddhav is actually a cousin of Krishna, because one of Vasudev's sister is actually Uddhav's mother. So in one sense, certainly by age and even by family connection, Uddhav is the nephew of Vidur, much like Duryodhana is the nephew of Vidur. And yet we see how this breakdown of Sadachar between Duryodhana and Vidur leaves him to quit that palace permanently. And yet the promotion of that Sadachar between Uddhav and Vidur leads to Vidur inquiring from him almost like a disciple. See, what a difference courtesy, hence the importance of Sadachar in building and fostering proper relationships and in this transmission of this Divya Gyan, this eternal knowledge. So I think this verse, similar to the previous verse, but I think in this verse, and actually I'm going to cheat a little. I'm going to pick on a few of the verses which we've just covered, 20 and 21, and I might even go forward a couple of verses to illustrate the point here. But here we're going to examine the ideal hearer, the ideal disciple, who in this instance is signified by Vidur. We're going to look at the ideal speaker, who in this instance is exemplified by Uddhav. And we're going to look at the what is the benefit of these ideal speakers, so these ideal disciples coming to these ideal speakers? What is the benefit of this relationship, not just to the two parties involved, but to all humanity? Samvad. Samvad means conversation. Now, for there to be an ideal conversation, there has to be ideal participants. And we'll see, and even if we just take a cursory look at many of our principal texts, Bhagavad Gita is a samvad, Krsnarjuna Samvad. This is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Srimad Bhagavatam is a series of conversations in a conversation in a conversation in a conversation. So we have Shaunak and Shamik Rishi, who are of Sutta, Romaharshan Sutta. But Sutta Goswami, Shaunak Rishi, they're having a conversation about Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami's conversation. And in that conversation between Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit, we have conversations such as the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. And you will see even in this conversation, they will discuss other conversations. So layers upon layers upon layers of conversation. And as we said, we have Srila Prabhupada who is speaking to us all through the Bhaktivedanta purport. And then we are discussing with each other. So it can't be overstated how important being the appropriate speaker is, but also the appropriate listener, the appropriate inquirer. This is the crux of the proper transmission of any information. Are you explaining it clearly? Are you listening carefully? And are you inquiring? And in fact, just to give some context, and maybe I've mentioned this before, but again, can't be overstated. Shukadev Goswami was only going to read and narrate to Parikshit Maharaj up to the 9th canto. And it was only because of Parikshit Maharaj's questioning at the end of the 9th canto that we got the face of Krishna, the real jewel of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the 10th canto. So if we become expert in the art of hearing and questioning and being the correct listener, we can also elicit the most from those who are the correct speaker. And if we are able to do that, maybe in future, we can be an appropriate speaker and that we can have appropriate listeners. Srila Prabhupada said everyone should become a guru. A guru does not necessarily mean a Diksha guru, as we know from Uddhav in the 11th canto. He finds instruction from over 20, from a bee. He finds instruction from a young girl who's washing pots. No, she's not washing pots, but she's making a preparation and her bangles are knocking together. So we can similarly, in whatever small or great way, if we become proper listeners, we can also be proper recipients to pass on this knowledge in some small or big way. Either way, our life is perfect if we are involved in being an appropriate listener and an appropriate speaker. So let's move on into the verse. We can see then that here, what is the ideal disciple? What is it about Vidur that is so ideal? So we've seen that, again, Vidur is speaking to his nephew. And he is speaking to the chief and most confidential amongst the devotees of Lord's game. In affection and confidence questioned him. So affection and confidence, what was the question that Vidur actually asked? That question is in the next verse. Vidur said, "O Uddhav, because the servant," oh, sorry. Yes, correct. Number 25. "O Uddhav, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself." So he is inquiring, he is taking a submissive position about somebody who has met the Lord. Now, for context, again, we can't overstate that this is the nephew of Vidur. Now, imagine if a parent had to submit unto the child, that same child that used to wipe its nappy and feed and comfort at night. And you have that relationship of you giving protection. And then all of a sudden, you're going to that child and asking that child to give protection to you. This is no easy feat. One really must have that param drishtva. They must have that higher vision in order to engage in such a way with either a child or a contemporary of one's child. So again, we are seeing, what is the prevalent thing that we are seeing? We're seeing no false ego in Buddha. As a parent myself, I think it's very difficult for me to envisage a situation where I would go to one of the contemporaries of my child and say, please tell me about the meaning of life so I can perfect my life, deferring to yourself, deferring to the child in that way. In the same way, Arjuna and Krishna. In the early days, Srila Prabhupada, if one was initiated even a few minutes before their god brother, Srila Prabhupada would be very particular. And he would say, he is your older god brother, or she is your older god sister. You are not allowed to sit in front of them. So when they were sitting in 26 Second Avenue, there was a hierarchy. And even if you were initiated a few days or a few minutes before, you would have to sit in front of your quote unquote junior god brother. So Arjuna and Krishna were actually born on the same day and at the same time. And that way, they were complete equals. They were the thickest of friends. They would do everything together, lie on the bank of Yamuna, Kalindi Kunj. They would have so many escapades together, joking, laughing, as good friends do. And yet, we see that in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 7th verse, what happens? Shashasteham shadimam tvam prabannam. Shashasteham. Arjun says to his lifelong friend Krishna that Shashasteham, I have become your disciple. Shadimam tvam prabannam. And I'm surrendering unto you. You please guide me. Could we possibly do that, even if with our lifelong friend, completely alter our relationship and genuine surrender from the heart? Having those things in our mind about, oh, remember when we wrestled here and remember when I tripped you over there, to be able to change that? That takes an incredible quality in a person. Not only their ability to be able to discern that this person is carrying the absolute truth, but the humility to realize that even though ostensibly we have a relationship of fraternal or a relationship where I am a senior, I am now, for my spiritual upliftment, willing to put away all my false identification as this body and being able to engage in that kind of relationship. Very, very rare. The verse that springs to mind to this extent is Trinadapi Sunichena, Taroriva Sahishnana, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. Everyone should know this verse. I'm sure you all do. This is the 3rd verse of the 8 verses of Shikshastika. Trinadapi Sunichena, Taroriva Sahishnana. The one we should consider ourselves lower than the straw in the street. The straw in the street, carts will roll over it, feet will step on top of it, animals will urinate on it. More tolerant than a tree. A tree gives shelter, a tree gives fruit, a tree gives firewood. You can carve your name into it, and a tree will continue to give. Dogs will urinate on it, a tree will continue to give. Amanina manadena. Amanina mani, not expecting anything for yourself, but manadena, willing to give respect to others, even though you don't get any respect. Kirtaniya sadahari. Kirtaniya sadahari. That you will then be able to sadahari. Kirtaniya sada, continuously do the kirtan of Hari, of Krishna. So that's a beautiful verse. But Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, for those of you who don't know, he was the one that compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya refers to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Charit Amrita, the nectar of the Charita, the nectar of the character of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He compiled a biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. And in so doing, he captured the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the teachings and example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's principal followers, namely Swarup Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Roy, and the 6 Goswamis. So Krishnadas Kaviraj had a lot of contact with Raghunath Das Goswami, and also he had a lot of contact with the diaries, the Gadachas of Swarup Damodar, who's one of the secretaries of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, he is now an authority. His book, Chaitanya Charitamrita, for those of you who don't know, encapsulate and capture the instructions of the supreme teacher, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is also like a Sampradaya Acharya, but they capture his teachings. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says about this verse, Trinada Pisunichena. He says, Urdva bahu kari kaho shuna sarvaloka nama sutre ganti para kante e shloka. So e shloka, this shloka, Trinada Pisunichena. He's saying, raising my hands, I declare, everyone, please hear me. Shuna sarvaloka. Shuna, listen, everyone. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. Nama Shutre Gonti, like Kanti, Gonti. Nama Shutre Gonti, Pada Conte E Shloka. Sorry, Nama Shutre Gonti, Pada Conte E Shloka. Wear this on your Conte, this Shloka, wear it on your neck. Use the thread of the holy name and wear this on the Conte, on your neck, like a Kanti Mala. We wear the Kanti Mala to signify that we are followers of Narayan, of Vishnu. So the Vishnu Dutas will stave away. So in the same way, we wear this Trinada Pisunichena verse around our neck. Why? To show that we respect this principle and that ultimately we are genuine hearers of this Divya Gyan, of this Shabda Brahman, this pure sound vibration. The qualification for understanding this sound vibration, proper instruction, is humility. It can't be overstated. If Vidur would have taken the position that I am Uddhava's uncle, why should I listen? I should speak. If Vidur would have taken that position, this whole part of the Bhagavatam wouldn't have happened. And he wouldn't have had any of these secrets, either by Uddhav or either thereafter by Maitreya, would not have been revealed to him. If Arjun would have taken the position that Krishna, you're my dost, you're my mitra, I don't need to surrender, the Bhagavad Gita would not have been relayed. What to speak of relayed, it wouldn't have been understood either. So we cannot overstate the importance of accepting proper instruction wherever it may come from. It may come from, and it's difficult for the ego. We are conditioned in this material world to look at things in a particular way. And in fact, there is a social order. So sometimes that makes it difficult. But yes, we have to transcend even beyond that social order. And for those of you who will or have read Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a very famous conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, yes, this social order is very important. But actually, the principle of understanding the principle of understanding the spiritual topic goes even beyond and is not constrained by the social order of this world, which is why Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, the first Acharya that we glorify from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, is the Namacharya Haridas Thakur, who was neither a Brahmana, he was from a very simple background, he didn't have formal Vedic training, and yet because he had realized the truth within his heart, he is worshipable by everyone. Imagine it, whether you are from the highest Brahminical family or the lowest family, everyone is taking shelter of Haridas Thakur. If we have Abhiman and we say, why should we listen to Haridas Thakur? We will not get his mercy to understand the holy name. So the ideal hearer, the ideal disciple, is one who, like Vidur, can approach with great affection and confidence anyone that they can see is a genuine holder, repository of the holy name. And if we adopt the instructions of Kaviraj Goswami, and we parakonte e shloka, if we wear this shloka on our verse, we also can become a proper hearer of this Divya Gyan. So then that's okay. We can prepare ourselves to be the ideal hearer, the ideal hearer. But then how do we identify who is the ideal speaker? Who is the ideal speaker? Well, we know, or hopefully we're all learning, one of the 4 books of the Bhakti Shastri. You have Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Shri Upanishad, and my controversial, maybe, my favorite of them all is Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami. In this small book, both in the verses and Srila Prabhupada's purports, so much about how to execute devotional service is revealed in such a short number of, I think it's 12 or 14 verses. I think it's only 12 verses. And the verse is Vacho Vegam Manasakrod Vegam, Etan Vegan Udarapasta Vegan, Jiva Vegan Yo Vishaheta Diraha, Sarvam Apimam Prithvim Sashisha. So the very first verse of this nectar of instruction, Upadeshamrita, very controversial. I said I preferred it to Bhagavad Gita and Sri Upanishad. But if there's only one book I could take with me, anyway, I don't know. I won't commit myself to it, but it's certainly, I mean, these things are all unlimited, but it's certainly one of the most inspiring books that I've read. I'd encourage everyone to read this Upadesha and memorize it as well, at least memorize the first 8 verses. So in this Vacho Vegam Manasakrod Vegam, this is the gold standard of how to understand who is a genuine speaker, who is the person that can be a guru, can be a shiksha guru, can be a speaker, can be a role model. Vacho Vegam Manasakrod Vegam. So one who can control the ability to speak, Manasakrod Vegam, the propensities of the mind and anger. Etan Vegan, Udarapasta Vegan, one who can control the Udarapasta, the tongue, the belly, the genital. It's in one line. You've controlled the mind, Manasakrod, and the anger, the tongue, the belly, the genitals, the abilities back. Jiva Vegan, Yovishaheta Diraha. Jiva Vegan means the tongue. The tongue has 2 functions, right? It can either speak or it can taste. It's both a karmendriya, an active sense that it talks, and a sense which is understanding, jnanendriya. It's the only sense that does both, right? It both is active and detects. And that's what's particularly difficult to control. Sarvam apimam prithvim sashisha. Such a personality can do what? He can make the whole world his disciple. He can make this, well, Srila Prabhupada translates it as he can make disciples all over the world. But some of the previous acharyas, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and I think it was actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's guru, he said, actually, this means he can make the whole world his disciple. Not that he could just make all disciples in different countries, but everyone in the world can become his disciple. And my Guru Maharaj emphasized that. But how Srila Prabhupada, it wasn't just a question that he could make disciples in many countries, but he could make a disciple out of every soul, out of every heart, out of every living entity. That was Srila Prabhupada's purity. Not just, 198 countries, or however many countries out, 205. I'll have a disciple in each one, 205. No, out of every 205 countries, every living entity, every human being can become Srila Prabhupada's disciple in one way or another. That is what the acharyas say for one who has controlled those senses. And yet beyond that, we're learning from that standard, actually Uddhav is providing another layer of what it means to be a proper teacher. Vidura is setting the example of the proper listener, but the proper teacher. If we go back to verse 20, we see in verse 20, Uddhava says, "My dear Vidura, now I am mad for want of the pleasure of seeing him. And just to mitigate this, I am now proceeding to Badrik Ashram in the Himalayas for association, as I have been instructed by him." So first of all, this verse is showing how Uddhava is the proper teacher. Why? Because he has received the instruction from the Supreme Lord himself. Whether you received it from the Supreme Lord or whether you've received it from the Supreme Lord's pure representative, it does not matter. We've mentioned before that the Guru Parampara, transparent via medium. And actually, in some sense, we talk about lenses, which is magnifying the instruction of the Supreme Lord. So this is the authoritative position. We've seen with Uddhav's credentials. He has been trained up. He has been trained up by, I was about to say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but yes, non-different from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So he has the authority. He's coming directly from Krishna, and he also has the training from Krishna. And then in verse 21. But also we see in this verse that he is also, not only has he received the knowledge, but he is following the instructions. So not only is he properly trained, but he is also properly applying. This verse shows that he is an ideal disciple, having received the training, and he is engaging, he is acting upon. He doesn't just have the Sambandha Gyan, he is engaging in the Abhidaya Gyan. And in fact, the verse before, that was verse 21. Verse 20, this is only 3 or 4 verses back. I have studied the path of understanding self-knowledge from my spiritual master, the personality of Godhead. And thus, after circumambulating him, I have come to this place, very much aggrieved due to separation. So we see here, he says he is bona fide. He has his spiritual master, the Supreme Lord. He has received the instruction, and now he is acting upon it. And now we see here in 26, what is the third? And that's actually how we began the class. So we're on verse 24. On verse 26, sorry for jumping ahead. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. On verse 26, what is Uddhava doing? Uddhava is actually guiding Vidura to Maitreya. Now, sometimes we can take what is going on for granted because it is written in the book. But just imagine, and those of you who are familiar with different temples in ISKCON, if the prime minister from the most powerful country in the world came to a particular place and said, I'm here to grace this place, and I want to learn from you. Generally, no temple in this world, even within our beautiful ISKCON movement, would say, don't learn here, go to that temple. They'd be thinking, wow, prime minister, world famous prime minister like Vidura has come here, come to me, wants to learn. Imagine how many more followers I can get. Imagine how many more resources for the temple I can get. Imagine how my position will be elevated by having this minister as my disciple. Well, what does Uddhava do in verse 26? Uddhava says, you may take lessons from the great learned sage Maitreya, who is nearby and who is worshipable for reception of transcendental knowledge. He was directly instructed by the personality of Godhead while he was about to quit this mortal world. That is like ISKCON Eldoret receiving Keshav Maharaj. And then, or not even Keshav Maharaj, like a minister, a great king or minister. Obviously, Keshav Maharaj is a traveling mendicant, but a great king or minister or billionaire who says, I want to learn here. And you're saying, no, go to ISKCON Mombasa, go to ISKCON, where's the one near, where's the one? I'm forgetting the name now, near Lake Victoria.
Kisumu.
Kisumu. Right. You would say, no, stay here, come learn. We'll record it all on YouTube.
Of course.
We will elevate our glory. So this is the great position of Uddhav. He has the authority. He is learned from his spiritual master. He is following the instructions of his spiritual master, and he is showing the proper sadachar. He is showing the proper etiquette. This is a very powerful combination. And when combined with the great, so he is showing the right etiquette, the humility that is being showed by Vidura. What is the result of this when these two things, this sangam, this holy sangam that is coming together? right? This is the Yamuna and the Ganga coming together. What is the result? The result is Kumbh Mela. The result can actually be seen in verse 25. See if I can pull up verse 25 here. 3, 4, 25. There's some problem with my laptop, but I'll bring it up on my. Bring it up here. Bear with me 1 second. 3, 4, 25. Vidur said, O Uddhav, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself. The servants of the Lord, the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others. So the result of having qualified speakers who are wandering to give the glories of the Lord to others, and qualified speakers who, when these wandering people come, are able to take on board what they are saying. Because why? Principally because they have the humility. They are ready to hear. They're ready to look past their social position and the social position of others and actually take on soul to soul this Divya Gyan. Then what happens? I've repeated it 100 times and I will repeat it 100 times more. Panchakosh is the solution for humanity. Panchakosh is the ability for us to be able to benefit others in a way which is more than superficial. If you read Srila Prabhupada's purports, he countless times talks about how even these leaders and industrialists and so-called scientists, they are only just dealing with the superficial nature of this existence, only with the physical which is non-permanent, which is constantly changing. In fact, before I get onto the Panchakosh, I would just like to narrate a pastime that I heard recently, which illustrates, I think, beautifully the importance of humility. And which is an incredibly difficult quality to develop, actually. It's a very difficult quality to develop. When Brahma visited Krishna in Dwarka, he was greeted by the gatekeeper. And Brahma was questioned by the gatekeeper. Yes, who are you? He said, I am Brahma. He said, okay, and what is your business here? Brahma was a bit perplexed. He said, it is to see the Supreme Lord, to see Krishna. He said, okay, hold on 1 second. I'll go and check. So, of course, Brahma is the creator of the universe. I'm sure he's not used to having to queue to gain entry anywhere. The gatekeeper came back after consulting with Krishna. The gatekeeper asked, sorry, which Brahma are you? And Brahma was totally bored. He said, I am the creator of the universe. You know, I am the original living entity in this universe, Brahma, Chaturmukhi Brahma. So the gatekeeper went back and then he came and said, yes, the Lord will see you now. So the Lord then questioned Brahma, so Brahma, you've come here to see me? And Brahma said, before I ask you that, my Lord, I have one question, which is, you asked through the gatekeeper, which Brahma am I? He said, what do you mean by that? And then the Lord started meditating. And in the Lord's meditation, he was calling many, many more Brahmas. And some Brahmas had 10 heads, and some Brahmas had 1,000 heads, and some Brahmas had 10,000 heads, some had laksha, 100,000 heads, some even had countless. Krsnarjuna Das Prabhuji SB said some had countless heads. And Brahma was bewildered. And then generally Rudra has 5 heads, and then there were Rudras with 10 heads, and there were Rudras with 1,000 heads, and there were Rudras with 100,000 heads. And Brahma became bewildered by that. And then there were Indras that started to appear, and some of them had 1,000 eyes, and some of them had 10,000 eyes, and some of them had 100,000 eyes. And it is said that Brahma began to tremble, right? Because Brahma was thinking, I am the original created being. Who can be higher than me, and who does not know my glory? But even the most powerful being in this universe, first of all, can, number one, be covered with false ego. But even the most powerful being in this universe, number two, can be humbled by another living entity. So these two things we should remember. Number one, it is difficult to develop genuine humility at all times. If even Brahma, who is the head of our sampradaya, is struggling with humility, then what to speak about? But number two, if we fall into this illusion, just like Brahma was humbled by an even more powerful Brahma, Brahma with countless heads, countless sides, he said that he began trembling like a rabbit amongst a herd of elephants. We should also think to ourselves, if Brahma can become humbled, who are we to become proud? Who are we to think that we are too important? And then Brahma, in order to receive this knowledge, what happened? He prayed that, oh Lord, I never want to have this ego that will prevent me from understanding your glory or from being able to chant your holy name. So Brahma then took birth as somebody in a quote unquote abominable birth, meat-eating birth, Muslim birth, fisherman birth, very, very simple. Some might say unremarkable circumstances. And then what happened? He was able to kirtaniya sada. He was able to chant the holy, he was able to take the instruction, the essence of the Veda, and perfect his life. To such an extent that somebody from a seemingly abominable, in this greatest position, Brahma showed ego in front of Krishna. And his most abominable position of Haridas Thakur, he was able to chant 192 rounds a day. And when he was no longer able to chant 192 rounds a day, what happened? He said, I will leave this body. And when he came to leave this body, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, rather than trying to slash his ego, broadcasted his glories by holding the form of Haridas Thakur in his own arms and performing the Antim Sanskara, the final rites, the final bathing of Haridas Thakur's body with his own tears. So this is the potency of humility. Humility is not an easy thing to come by, but it is an absolute non-negotiable. If we have ego, we must realize that we are in Maya, because even Brahma himself becomes humble. So what is the value of taking on this humility, of having these proper discussions? As I said, it's Panchakosh. Panchakosh is the process by which we can progressively benefit ourselves by progressively benefiting the living entities around us. And again, I've mentioned it many times, but I'll repeat it now. Annamoy, annamoy, anna, food. When we are just absorbed in our own bodily consciousness and in the enjoyment of our body and senses, anna, everything becomes consumable by us, food. If I enjoy, nobody else can enjoy vicariously through me. It is just for me alone. I can consume anything, anyone for my enjoyment. Above that is pranamoy, symbiotic bodily enjoyment. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Pran, breath. We breathe out carbon dioxide. The trees breathe in carbon dioxide. They breathe out oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. There's a symbiosis, interdependence. This is better than annamoy, where one is just consuming the other. It's interdependence. But again, it's only on the physical. Mannamoy, the mind. When we have a sense of duty, which goes beyond the physical. And the example I always give is the soldier on the front line, border security force, the great and noble Javans of Bharat who are protecting us from all of these murderous people who are willing to kill women, children indiscriminately. They will sacrifice their life to protect the innocent people of Bharat. We may never know their sacrifice. We may never know their names. They may never know our names, but there is a higher sense of purpose, and they benefit people without any self-interest of what's in it for me. And what does Krishna say? One who dies from the battlefield, they will achieve at least Svarga Loka. So again, the deeper that you benefit someone, the greater the benefit to you, the greater the benefit to society. Above that is Vigyan. Realized knowledge. What is the realized knowledge? That we have three bodies, not just the physical body, not just the subtle body of dharma, who the Javans are protecting, but we also have the Karana Sharir, the causal body, the thing that gives us consciousness, Have we forgotten that? You know, chemicals cannot be conscious of themselves. Go to any chemistry lab. You will never see a test tube full of chemicals jump out and start composing poetry. The mind, what is it? Where does it come from? Karana Sharir. Karana Sharir, the soul. So one who is giving us knowledge about the soul. They can help us not just in this life, not just our physical body, not just our subtle body, but they can help our spiritual body, which comes life after life. Dehantarar praptir, you know, body after body, they can help us. And Anandamoy. They can awaken. So Vijnanamoy means they can awaken us to the fact that there is more than our stula sharir, our physical body, our shukshma sharir, our subtle body, mind, intelligence, force, ego, but also our karana sharir, the cause of our sentient being. They awaken this in us. And then the highest of all is Anandamoy. Anandamoy. They are the people who not only benefit our physical, who not only benefit our mental, who not only show us the fact that we have a spiritual element, but they allow us to achieve that thing for which we are always hankering. That love, that bliss, that never-ending reciprocation that we are actually hankering for, that we are trying to artificially satisfy through this world, through these senses. They are the most magnificent because they will give us an unlimited surplus of happiness. You can buy a $1 billion yacht, and I guarantee you in 5 years' time, in 1 year time, in 1 month's time, somebody else will build something bigger, or you will become bored of this yacht. I've gone sailing on it. How much sailing can I do? Whether it's a $1 billion, 500 million, or 100 million, how much sailing can I do? Nothing in this world will fully satisfy us eternally. But this chanting of the holy name, seeing Krishna face to face, serving the servants of Krishna day after day, month, year after year, is an expanding ocean of bliss. And those people, those great self-realized souls like Uddhav, who have seen the Lord, been instructed by a Lord, been instructed by the servants of the Lord, and those great realized souls, humble souls, great souls. You know, Vidura is a Mahajan. He's one of the 12 Mahajans, and he can even exhibit this humility. When these people come together, the sum total of their conversation can elevate us to the level of Anandamoy. They can not only give us that gift, but they can empower us that we can give this gift to others. Not just for this lifetime, but for all lifetimes. Not just for all lifetimes, not just eternal bliss, but the highest realm of eternal bliss. Gopi Partur Pamtakamalor Das Das and Das. Gopi Partur Padakamalor Das Das and Das. They can elevate you to be a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Krishna's closest servant. A happiness which is not even available to the demigods and the great rishis. Even in one sense to Vyas himself. Nectar of Instruction says, even Radhakund, you know, the service of Radhakund, the service of the gopis, the servant of the servant of the servant of Radharani is not even available to the compiler of the Vedas. But these conversations can make us, insignificant us, eligible to enter into that eternal bliss. Panchakosh, very important principle. So, the ideal hearer wears this garland of humility, this necklace, this jewel of humility around his neck. The ideal speaker is authoritative, he is learned, and he has proper etiquette as well. He is willing even to say, don't learn this from me, learn it from them. He's willing to forego his own personal glory for the benefit of another living entity. And as a result of this conversation, what happens? Not only do they become even more elevated, but we become elevated. We become elevated so that personally we can enjoy an eternity of spiritual bliss. But we're also empowered to be able to pass that bliss to others. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Please, if there was any comments, questions, or corrections, I would be very excited to hear them.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful session and giving us the qualifications of being a hearer and a speaker. I open it up for any questions or comments. I have a few questions. Prabhuji, the tree, as you said, you carve on them, People can go and urinate on them, and they are so tolerant. Yet, compared to, I mean, I feel they are more tolerant. Obviously, they are more tolerant than me, especially. But then they are not held in high regard compared to human. And is that because they don't have the thinking capability, um, or they don't? Just being tolerant is not a qualification for getting Krishna prema.
Of course. So that's a really wonderful question, and thank you for asking that, Mataji. So there's 2 points I'd like to make. Number one is about the Srila Prabhupada talks about the evolution of consciousness. So this is not Darwinian evolution. This is evolution through progressive births that you take. And the second point is about how, while we can borrow certain features from the animal and plant kingdom, we borrow those features, but we apply it to the human form of life. So if you consider the universe, there's actually 13 planetary systems. You have Om, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. You have the higher planetary systems. Bhu is the Earth planet. Bhuva and Swaha. These are the higher planetary systems, all the way up to Brahmalok. You also have the hellish planets, all the way down to Rasatalok. In the middle, you have Bhulok. So Bhulok represents the ground floor, right? Entry and exit. The hellish planetary systems are like the basement. The higher planetary systems are like the peak of the skyscraper. But generally, when you want to come in, and certainly when you want to leave, you have to leave through the ground floor, right? You may go up to the top floor, but when you want to leave, you come down to the ground floor. You may want to go to the basement. When you want to leave, you come up to the Bhumandal. So Bhumandal is how we come in and out of this universe. Now, equally, the species of life, there are 8,400,000 forms of living entity. The species of life, out of those 8,400,000, 400,000 are humans. And humanoids are the species of life which allow one to be able to leave this planet. This not planet, this universe, this material nature. While we can gain instruction from the different animals and persons and the world around us, you know, a honeybee will go to a field full of stool and find the one flower. It can find good in an abominable situation, whereas a fly will go to a field full of flowers and find the one piece of stool. So there's something to be learned there. That doesn't mean that we aspire to become a bee. But as a human, we aspire for that quality of the bee, to always seek out something good, even in a difficult situation. In the same way, as a human, we can perceive that a tree is incredibly giving. It gives fruits, it gives shade, it gives flowers, it gives wood, it gives beauty, it gives so many things. And while we can aspire in our human form of life to exhibit the similar qualities, that doesn't mean that we aspire to become a tree. Now, why is that? Because the tree can't render service directly. It can indirectly. And Srila Prabhupada talks about the consciousness. The tree has some consciousness, right? As a seed, if there's a shady area and there's a place where there is light, the tree will grow towards the light, right? If there is place in the soil where there is water, the roots will grow towards the water. So the tree is conscious, but it's a very limited level of consciousness. The tree can't take a walk. The tree can't perceive. The tree may not be able to remember. The tree cannot recite. The tree can hear. Actually, if you sing to plants, they can hear. And in fact, they even sing to plants in Kew Gardens, which is a famous horticultural society. A friend of mine is actually a horticulturalist, and about 15 years ago, they were having a lot of trouble growing tulsi in Kew Gardens. And so as a devotee, he's actually the son of a Prabhupada disciple. He taught the gardeners there to sing Tulsi Puja. And so every day in Kew Gardens, they have no idea what they're singing, but they are singing to Tulsi, and actually Tulsi is growing. So plants can hear, but they have a limited consciousness. And as a result of this, they do not have the free will by which it is required to engage in devotional service to the Lord. Now, somebody may cut down that tree and turn that tree into a beautiful ornament for the Lord. And maybe the entrapped soul, by dint of that contact with the Supreme Lord, will be freed from this universe. But that will be because of the kripa, not because of the purushartha, the swatantriya, the free will that is exercised. So generally, while we aspire for qualities within the animal kingdom, we don't aspire to become them, because by becoming them, we lose the most important element. What Krishna is actually looking for is us using our free will to render service, to express love, and to show a conscious desire to be eternally with him. I hope that answers your question, Mataji. I hope that's...
Yes, Prabhu, partly answered, but I was also inquiring whether being as tolerant as a tree, that qualification will not take us to Krishna Prema. Just that qualification. We need to have other qualifications as well.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. That's also a very good question. So let me just make sure I've got the question right. So would the qualification of being as tolerant as a tree be enough to take us back to Godhead?
That's correct. Thank you.
Well, I think that qualification, Trinadapi Sunichana, of course, will be. But then so the other two that I think that are important beyond that are Pariprashnena and Sevaya. You see, this Trinadapi is the soil, but inquiring, Tadvidi Pranipatena, Pariprashnena Sevaya, Upadakshanti Te Jnanam, Jnaninas Tatpadarshana. That when you approach the spiritual master, if you are humble, but you inquire submissively and you render service, then you're guaranteed. But for those two limbs or those two forks in the trunk, you need this soil of Trinadapi Sunichana. But yes, I would say that is the foundation from which the other two can grow very healthily. But that doesn't mean that we are very humble and we just sit in one corner. You need to render service and you need to inquire submissively.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And even humility, is a great part according to the nectar of instruction. So thank you so much.
I think it's 90, well, we can't quantify it, but if you can develop those qualities and you make contact with devotees, I think that's
yeah. Okay, I'm cognizant of the time, and we can open it up for one more question if anybody has any questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I don't have a question nor a comment, but a prayer. It was a wonderful class. I just pray to Hare Krishna Nam Pracharya Acharya, which is Srila Prabhupada, to help us to follow the footstep of Hare Krishna Nam Acharya, Haridas Thakur, to follow the class which today Krsnarjuna Das has been giving. It might be theory, but Gyan, but in practice, just like you said, like even Lord Brahma find it very difficult to be humble. So while chanting tomorrow and every day, I will try to have the bhavna to please help me have the ability to be like Vidhur, who can listen to someone who is junior, to be like Uddhav, who can send Vidhur to someone who has higher knowledge according to him, which was his humility, to have the ability of being like Arjun, who will listen to his friend as a shishya. Krsnarjuna Das also mentioned about the precaution to be taken, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like yes, we need to respect the social order, but still higher than social order, certain instruction transcend this. And we can't just blindly follow the instructions like Vidhur listening to Uddhav. Krsnarjuna Das mentioned about nectar of instruction, text number 1. So we have to discriminate very, very diligently. So this requires a lot of practice. That's why today I'm doing this prayer for Srila Prabhupada to help us to really follow the footsteps of Haridas Thakur and follow the class of what Krsnarjuna Das has been giving today. It really requires a lot of practice, a lot of discrimination. Yeah, we know we have to have this humility, this tolerance, but we can't just listen to anyone and everyone. Just like Krsnarjuna Das says, nectar of instruction, text number 1. Only those people who have those qualities. Otherwise, we have to follow this social order. It requires a lot of discrimination. So I pray for Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna to help all of us. That's our bhavna while chanting tomorrow and every day today. Now onwards. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Beautifully put. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, ISKCON Eldoret ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shall we finish with Vanchakalpatarubhyascha?
Yes, yes.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo,
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Grace Krishna Arjun Prabhuji ki jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Eldoret
Granth
ki jai.
Jai.
Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you
Jai.
everybody for joining in.
Thank
Hare Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.